friend. Welcome back to your Big Creative Life podcast, coming to you from the floor. I was sitting in front of my window recording some content. I have a light, like not a ring light, but a little rectangular light that I use sometimes when I'm recording videos, just so in case the lighting's not great, but I never remember to charge it, and it's just honestly so much easier to sit in front of a window. So I think this is tilted. Let me see. Okay. So I was like, let me just podcast here as well, since I'm home for the day. This is, I guess you can think of this week's episode as kind of like a part 3 of this series. I think it was last year, maybe end of 2023, 2024. We did a tough love episode that was writing, just like tough love. And then in the writing process. And then number 2 was tough love in the editing process. So then think of this one as, I guess, kind of a part 3, tough love in the querying process. Now, I want to issue a little bit more of a warning on this one in particular, because querying is a difficult process in terms of it actually being difficult to find an agent, but then also mentally, emotionally, it's just hard. There's a reason that people refer to it as the query trenches, okay? If you are feeling vulnerable, if you're feeling sensitive, if you've been dealing with a lot of rejection lately and you just don't feel like you are in a state to be able to handle me talking bluntly and tough to you in this episode, then please don't listen to this one. I did something when I was querying the first time around where I listened to a ton of podcasts, I researched querying, I got a ton of knowledge, but then I kind of capped it at a certain point and was like, okay, I don't think, once I'm actually querying, I don't think it's helpful for me to consume all this content about how tough it is, because yeah, it just wasn't helpful for me. So if that's you, protect your peace. I get it. This is going to be tough. I mean, I don't know. I always think the other episodes are super hard, but they're not actually that hard. It's just not usually my style. I'm not like a boot camp drill sergeant type of person. So I don't know. But the reason I guess I want to include this episode because, or this topic in the tough love umbrella, because I'm seeing more and more comments on social media and more of a feeling from people who want to query or who are querying that it's just impossible and there's no information online about it, and it's just like all these comments that make me feel some type of way. And we'll get into all that in this episode, but I was like, yeah, I think some writers, like, I think y'all just kind of need a kick in the ass about querying. So again, if you're feeling fragile, if you're feeling sensitive, totally understand, protect your peace, don't listen to this episode. But we're going to get into it if you want to stick around. Number 1, finding an agent is tough. It is fucking hard to find an agent, which means that if you are experiencing difficulty, meaning your querying is not going the way that you wanted to, you haven't found an agent yet, you haven't gotten full requests yet, that's because querying is difficult. I, before this, Googled, and I only Googled for like a minute. It was not a very long Google session, but I had heard different statistics on how difficult it is to find an agent, meaning out of all the writers querying, like what percentage actually do find an agent, and it's discouraging. It's low. It's extremely low. The best, I saw a lot of numbers. I saw numbers that were very discouraging. I won't even tell you those numbers. The one I saw that was the most optimistic was 1 out of every 100. Now, I don't know exactly where these people are getting these numbers. Some of the articles or blog posts that I looked at from people who are in publishing or have some experience with this look at the average number of submissions that agents get and then how many agents they sign every year, and then do some math based on that. So even if we go with 1 out of 100, that's a 1% success rate to find an agent. It's not impossible. Clearly, even if we're looking at 1%, it's not impossible. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who get agents every year. It's got to be thousands. It can't just be hundreds. I don't know. But I've done it. I've found 2 agents. I'm on my 2nd agent right now. So it is possible, but it's really, really hard. There are some of you listening who want an agent and are not going to find one. That might mean right now, meaning this first book that you wrote or whatever number book it is, it might not be the book that gets you an agent. You might have to write another book and query that one in order to get an agent. But it's tough. It's tough. And I feel like some people just aren't ready to hear that. They think that they're the exception, that they're going to get the first agent they send it to is going to offer them representation, and that's it. There are unicorns like that, but they're very rare. So it's tough. It's tough to find an agent. And it does no good if you just kind of bury your head in the sand and think like, oh, I don't want to hear about that. Like, I think it's easy to get an agent. Like, I just have to manifest it and like write a book and then boom, I can get an agent. No, it's tough. It's really, really tough. Okay, number 2, you have to get comfortable with rejection. You have to, okay? You have to develop this muscle of resilience. Why? Because rejection is part of being an author. It is part of being a creative person, putting your works out into the world. If you don't get it from agents, if you don't get it from beta readers, if you don't get it from critique partners, you're going to get it from readers. You're going to get it in the form of book sales. Like, rejection is just inherent in this process. And if you are so fragile to the point where you cannot handle a single rejection from an agent without it completely devastating and destroying and derailing you, then you're not ready to query. You should not be querying. You should not be trying to get a book deal with that attitude. If that's your position, where you truly just want to give up if you get a single rejection, I don't know what to tell you. You got to work on that resilience muscle. And it is a muscle. It's something that gets better and better and better the more that you do it. I talk all the time about this. Like, the very first time that I let someone else read my work, I thought I was going to throw up and pass out. It was so scary. It was so vulnerable. But then I did it more and more and more and over and over and over, and also queried twice, and also sent my book out on submission to publishers. You just get better and better the more that you do it. But you got to get comfortable with rejection. Like, you cannot avoid it. And that shouldn't be the goal. So if you truly feel like you cannot handle a single rejection, then don't query. Don't do it. Number 3, you are not the exception. You are not the magical unicorn exception that we occasionally hear about in social media. Meaning, oh, there's a debut author who queried a 190,000 word fantasy novel and got an agent on their first query. Okay, great, but that person's the fucking exception. It is so rare. It is so hard as a debut author to get an agent if you're querying a 190,000 word novel. You're not the exception. You have to think about yourself as the rule. If you're doing something that you think is different, if you're pushing boundaries, if you're doing something outside the norm, you have to understand that you might not get a good reaction from traditional publishing, from agents, if you're doing that. Meaning, if your word count is way outside the norm, either way, meaning high or low. And if you're wondering about word count, I have some posts about that. Writer's Digest has a good infographic. You can just Google like word count Writer's Digest. But basically you want to be in the area of like 70 to 110. If you're doing adult fantasy, you can push up towards 110. Honestly, I've heard agents say like even slightly under that is probably a safe bet when you're querying. But so if you're querying a 50,000 word novel or 150,000 word novel, and you're like, no, but mine's different. I know that agents say they don't want that, but I need all of those words. Or my story's completed this few words. No, girl, pull your head out of your ass. You're not the exception. You can't do that. And of course, people point to, oh, well, Sarah J. Maas had this, or, oh, 10 years ago it was that. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Publishing changes constantly. The market changes. You got to know what agents are expecting and then follow the guidelines. And this also, yes, it comes to your book, but it also comes to how you're querying. If an agent tells you, do not query me if you have this subject matter in your book, or send the first 10 pages, and you don't follow those guidelines, meaning you send your manuscript anyway because you think they really should read it, and oh, well, they need to see the first 3 chapters instead of the first 10 pages. No, again, pull your head out of your ass. You're not the exception. You're not that special. You have to follow the rules just like everyone else does. If an agent has guidelines on how they want you to query them, you have to follow it. That's the bare minimum. Agents talk ad nauseum about how many rejections they send out just because the person didn't follow the guidelines. So if they ask for the first 10 pages, only send them the first 10 pages. Do not send the full first chapter if your full first chapter is 14 pages. It's so easy, y'all. You're making it complicated, at least with this part. There are other things in querying, I will agree, that are a little bit more complicated. This is not one of them. It's not that hard. Follow the guidelines. You're not special. You're not unique. You're not the exception. You have to abide by the rules. Number 4, the information you need is available online. I don't want to hear people complaining about there's no information. All of this is secret. It's gate kept. Publishing doesn't want you to know this information. This is what inspired me to make this, honestly, because I was seeing all of these comments on social media that were like, we don't know. It's impossible to find any of this information. No, it's not. Do you know how I know everything I know about querying? 95% of it is because I researched it both times. I researched it again when I was doing it the second time to see if anything had changed, to get an idea of agents, like all that stuff, right? It's freely available. I could see this argument if it was like 1991 and the internet wasn't around and you had to like buy a book or talk to people who had done it. Sure, maybe there was a bit more mystery around it. But you cannot, I'm sorry, I don't buy that excuse. It's an excuse, that's what it is. There are reputable people talking about this online. There are social media posts. Agents have social media accounts. Agents have blogs. Agents have websites where they are going in depth about what you should do when you query, what they're looking for in a manuscript, how to send things, how to write a query letter. Like, there's so much information online. Again, 95% of what I know about querying is because I've just researched it and done it. There is maybe 5% that comes because I've gone through this process and I've signed with an agent. So maybe 5%. That might even be being generous. It might be like 3% of the stuff I know about querying I know because of like what comes after when the agent offers you representation. But there's even stuff online about that. You can read blog posts from people who are like, hey, here are questions to ask an agent when you get on the call to talk about working together. Or I don't know, here's what happens after you sign with an agent. Like, there's even information about that available online. I talk about it. Even if you do no other homework or research and you just look at the materials that I have put out, my social media content, episodes of this podcast that are dedicated to querying, you will find resources. And actually, if you're like, I still don't know where to go, start with Google. And if you don't want to start there, just look at your Big Creative Life podcast on Spotify and you can type in query or querying. And I have like 5 episodes at least dedicated to this topic. So it's an excuse to say there's no information out there. It's not some secret that only certain people have. It's not like I know all of this stuff about querying because my agent is whispering in my ear and telling me trade secrets that no one else knows. It's just, you have to do the homework. You have to do the research. And a lot of people just don't want to do the research, which I get. It's a little bit time consuming. And to step back from the tough love approach just for a second, if you're completely new to writing and completely new to all of this and you're listening to this and you're like, wait, I don't even know what querying is. I got you. I know there's a learning curve. So if you're brand new, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people who have been querying, have queried already, and are still complaining that they don't know what a query letter is, or like they don't, agents won't look at this type of thing, or I don't know. There's like this attitude that agents are just cackling behind their computer, like gleefully pressing reject on queries that come in. And the reality is agents are looking for clients. If they say they're open to queries, they want to find clients to represent. They're excited. They're hoping that when they look at their inbox, they get a query that's really solid and they get a sample that's like a manuscript sample that's really solid. They're looking for that. So I can't stand that all of the content online from people or comments who just paint agents as these evil villains who are looking for any excuse to gleefully reject you. No. Like, they have said 80% of the time it's because people don't follow the guidelines. So follow the guidelines. But yeah, if you are genuinely new, like, there is a bit of a learning curve because I didn't know what a query letter was before I started this process. I had no idea. So you do have to learn the terminology, but all the information you need is available online, I promise. Okay, number 5. You have to accept that this book might not be the one that gets you an agent. Okay? I talked about this already. We get better with everything that we write. That's like one of the biggest tips for writers that I have on how to improve is to write. You get better at writing by writing. Sounds so obvious. It's so simple, but it's simple because it's true. So if you are writing your first book and you're querying, you have to accept that this might not be the book that gets you an agent. I've seen people who it takes 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 books before they get an agent because their earlier work was just not where it needs to be. It's just not. And one thing you don't want to do, if you're listening to this, I don't want to catch you doing this, okay? Do not query prematurely because you're so excited. I think that's what happens with a lot of new writers, at least how agents talk about it. I think this is kind of part of what they see. So a new writer gets done with their book. They're so excited to query. They're so excited to get their book published that they do a little bit of editing, like a round maybe, and they send the book off and they query it. They don't let anyone read it. They don't give feedback. If they can hire an editor, but they just don't think they need it, they're not hiring an editor. And you don't have to hire an editor to query. That's not what I'm saying. It's more just like the person is so excited, they don't take the time to make sure that their manuscript is ready. Or worse, they send off an unfinished manuscript or a very, very rough draft when they query because they're so excited and they just can't wait to get that agent, can't wait to get the big book deal. And then it's rejected. Of course it's rejected because it's not ready. It's not where it needs to be in terms of quality. So don't do that. Take the time, improve your craft, study it, focus on making the book as good as it possibly can be. And also expect that like there's a good chance that this won't be the book that gets you the agent. Especially going back to those stats about how hard it is, there's a good chance it won't be the book that gets you an agent. And the next point of tough love I have for you is you have to stay open. You have to stay open to things unfolding differently than you expected. Meaning, just what I said, this might not be the book that gets you the agent. You might have to submit to a small press first, and then later down the road, you get an agent. Or you might decide, fuck this, I'm not querying for all these years and trying to get an agent. I am making the decision that I want to be an indie author because I want to get more of the royalties. I want to have more creative control. I don't want to deal with the gatekeepers. So you decide to indie publish. Like, you have to be open to things unfolding differently than how you expected. Even take me, for example. I did not think little 2019 Katie, when I signed with my first agent, I didn't think my book was going to die in submission. My first book did get me an agent, but then that book didn't sell. And that was not in my plan for that to happen. And if you told me, oh, in 6 years, in 2025, you're still not going to have a published book, I would have probably just cried and given up. So you have to be open to things unfolding differently than you expected. You have to be able to pivot and accept, like, this is a difficult industry. And not to get too doomsday and talk about AI and derail the conversation completely, but we're going to have to adapt with AI. We're going to have to get smart. We're going to have to think about different ways of doing things. None of us knows exactly what this market is going to look like, what the publishing landscape, the writing landscape is going to look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years. So there has to be some level of flexibility. And if you're so rigid and you're not open, you're not willing to look at other options, then you might be in for a really fucking tough road. I just gotta say. And sometimes, again, to step back slightly from the tough love approach, sometimes books just don't find an agent or don't find a publisher because of something that has nothing to do with the quality of the writing. Sometimes agents, editors, whoever, just don't acquire it or sign you because they don't know how to sell it. They don't know how to position your book in the market. And if an agent doesn't know how to sell your book, they're not going to sign it. They're not going to offer to represent you and take you on as a client. So sometimes there are things where it's like your book could just be something that's better as an indie. Like you might be better indie publishing it or finding a small press who deals with this specific niche that you are writing in, where you're doing something experimental, you're blending genres, or you're not abiding by genre conventions. Like, you're going to have a tough time then, and an agent probably won't offer to represent you. So in those cases, like, there's a lot of reasons why an agent just would pass and decide not to offer representation outside of, oh, the book just isn't good. That happens. So just know that too. Okay, that's my tough love approach. If I could leave you with anything, it's that I hate this attitude of helplessness that people seem to have on social media. Not everyone. This is a tough love episode, so I'm focusing on the negatives here. So many people are lovely and willing to learn and willing to do the work and want to grow, and that's like the majority of people. But there's this vocal group on social media that I get so irritated at because they're like, they have this attitude of helplessness. Like, well, I've queried like 300 agents and I can't find one, and it's because, I'm writing outside of conventions, or they won't take a chance on someone who's not in the industry already, or it's because I don't have money. And it's like all this stuff that just isn't true. Or people who are like, you can't find any of this information online. Like, good luck querying, good luck finding agents to query because it's all gate kept. No, it's not. That is not how this works. Oh my God. It's like the people that claim that you need a big social media following to get a book deal for fiction. Like, if you would just take 2 seconds and verify that, you would see that that's not true. But it gets attention, I guess, on social media. So if I could leave you with anything, it's like, querying is a challenging process. That's why that was the first point in this episode. It is really tough, but it's not impossible. And the information that you need is available online to find. You just have to do the legwork to figure it out. Okay. The other episodes, tough love, over and done with. If you do need some encouragement, please check out the other querying episodes. Like I said, I have been through this process a couple of times. It is very difficult, emotionally, mentally. Yeah, I'm thinking about you. I'm with you. This is just, yeah. I think we didn't even get into the whole getting a book deal thing. I really just wanted to focus on querying here because that's like the first obstacle is just getting an agent. But again, if you're querying, I'm thinking about you. I know it's difficult. Do what you can to take care of yourself during this process, meaning write something new, do something fun for yourself, set a reward every time you send out a certain amount of queries, celebrate every little bit of progress. Even if you get one partial request or one full request, that's amazing. It means an agent saw something in your sample. So that's promising. Yeah. Okay. If you would like more tough love, you can go back and check out the tough love writing and the tough love editing episodes, meaning like editing your own work, not working with an editor, but tough love for self-editing, because that's a piece of it too. All right, thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. If you just needed a kick in the ass to kind of get you set up for this, or maybe you're thinking about querying and kind of wanted a tough, I don't know, drill sergeant to yell at you about querying. Next week, we'll be back to the regularly scheduled Katie, not the drill sergeant Katie, because it's fun to do for a little bit, but that's just not me. So, all right, thank you for listening or watching. A reminder, you can check out the YouTube channel if you want to get the video of the podcast instead of listening to it. Okay, see you next week.